Welcome to another episode of Data Lab Dialogues. My name is Thomas Madsen. I'm heading the Experience Center in Copenhagen. Today, though, we are at Grundfos in a studio, as you can see. This is a first for us. We drove all the way to Bergström this morning and are happy to be here. With me today, of course, I have Karl Bergström again.
Yeah, nice, Thomas. And what a place and what mics we have here. Better than what we have at home.
Oh, yes, absolutely. This is a new setting for sure. With us today, we have Jakob Roed, that is Department Manager of Development in Grundfos. And welcome to you.
Thank you.
Or I should say, thanks for hosting us, Jakob.
Welcome to you too.
We have leveled.
Yeah. Well, we most of the podcast has been out of the Experience Center, but I think 5 or 6 or so we've visited customers, and with this experience in mind, I think we should do it more often for sure. Yeah.
Yes, we should.
But before we kick it off, Jakob, you went to visit us actually yesterday in Copenhagen. So it was a long day for you yesterday. You joined us at SAP together with 4 students out of Aalborg Universitet that you have had through a program here at Grundfos, which I think sounds really exciting. But Jakob, is there enough people at the different types of STEM universities in Denmark that know about SAP?
Well, we had the experience firsthand last year when we interviewed candidates for these 4 positions, and I think it's fair to say that the knowledge and awareness about SAP was close to zero. So I think that calls for all of us in the market, SAP, Grundfos, and everyone else to join the journey on creating awareness of SAP, so we have future talents to recruit on.
It's. I've been with SAP for a long time. I remember back in the 90s, we at Lund's University in Sweden, we set up something, but this is something that we need to go on doing for a long period.
Absolutely.
So I really salute that.
Yeah, I mean,
I think it's a common interest, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you are not the only one that voiced this concern. So while SAP do indeed have a big ecosystem and a lot of customers, of course, with many employees that work with SAP, we also hear that there is a significant challenge in attracting new talent to work with SAP solutions. So hopefully your initiatives will work to improve that.
Yeah, but also may I add that it's actually we have all the power for recruiting normally, right? Mm-hmm. You do too. But we also have experience during this process that we actually could benefit from utilizing each other. And that's been great support for you from your employer branding as well.
Yeah.
Mm. We have the tools, we have the information, we know how important SAP is for the market, our Grundfos included.
Yeah.
And it's fun.
It is.
Yeah.
Yeah, so one of the students yesterday gave me the suggestion to just drop by on universities for 3 hours now and then in the afternoon, early evening, to give a talk and bring some pizzas and perhaps a couple of beers. And why not do that? So I think we will definitely work on that, and hopefully we can bring a few clients. It might even be you, Jakob, to explain about your experience on use of SAP. But hopefully we'll hear a little bit about that today as well. But before we start, Jakob, perhaps you could introduce yourself. Who are you and what's your current role here at Grundfos?
Yes, my name is Jakob Roed Jonstrup. I'm manager at Grundfos IT. I've been with Grundfos for 24 years. Started out in the e-business days with a product catalog and turned into being an extranet. And then grow into become a department, and that's where I started as a department manager. Later, that had a broad integration and interfacing to SAP, as SAP hosts quite a bit of the e-commerce world, at least data-wise and process-wise.
So when you're saying that, did you have SAP back 24 when you were kicking off? Yep.
And then I had the opportunity to take upon the responsibility for the SAP and SAP integration developments. And I've been heading that for, I think, 15 years or so. Time flies. But well, it's been a great experience, and it still is. There's been loads of development for me personally, for the department, for the area as such. We globalized during that period of time as well, getting more centers and having employees all over the world. And then lately it's been with the S4 journey, and then recently the BTP journey. Recently, that's a couple of years ago.
Okay.
But still we are safely on S4, and we are now maturing in the area of BTP quite heavily.
Fantastic. How was you say safely on S4? Was it a bumpy journey, or can you tell us a little bit?
I think that was one of the things that we were hit by COVID during that period of time, and that means everyone was forced to work from home, right? Mm-hmm. We had the concern that going live on S4, being remote all of us, whether that would be too high a risk. But I can honestly say that it was a huge success. We had it required quite a bit of a preparation, a couple of years, quite some hours. And within my area, there was smaller bumps, but there was nothing, no business interruption as such. And now being responsible for the integration area, I can literally say that after a couple of 1 or 2 days, we had normal operations.
Okay.
And that's considering that we kicked down the system for 5 days, and the integrations are failing during that period of time, basically.
And then you turn them on.
Then we turn them on, and then it all starts pulling in. And after, I think even within the first day, we could see, okay, this is operating. We just, like if we had the system down anyway, then normal problems, so to speak.
That is interesting to hear, because when we're out speaking to customers who are considering to moving, the integrations is something everybody's concerned about, because now we are changing this. We're going to S4. Of course, I guess you prepared for this, but what I hear you saying is that it worked.
We can say it worked afterwards, right? So
the way you explain it, it reminds me of the movie about the Apollo 13, when they, are about to start up again after being dormant for a while, going back. They needed to find the right approach, the right order to switch on the things. And is there also the right order to switch on the integrations?
There was. But it was well conducted. It's not my effort, but it was really well conducted.
And then Grundfos around the S4, the surrounding systems, they kept going like any other business to support Grundfos business. So I guess they were queuing up messages outside, and
and then when we opened up, then they were entering. Of course, that system was busy at that time, but that sort of like evened out during, I think, one day or so, and maybe even faster. I don't recall, other than I was happy afterwards.
Yeah. Okay. That's the important thing.
Which version did you start up on S4? S4, was it 1909 19 or 2010?
No. I think it was 18. I actually don't recall now, because we just had this weekend. We had an upgrade to 2021. So
okay. So you have upgraded as well. That is awesome.
Patched.
Yeah. And upgrades, was that then easier in a normal ECC upgrade? Now you've tried it for once.
Well, the preparation from the last couple of times has made us mature a bit, and it is. We went live, and there was minor defects. No limited business impact. So I think, yes, one of the things that also made that happen is that we're maturing as we go along, but there's still a journey.
Awesome, but let's take a step back then. Your role as a manager in IT, what does that entail? What's a day in a life of a guy like you? Are you doing Scrum Master jobs or stakeholder management, or can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, well, what I do for a living is basically making people grow, and growing with the new technologies, utilizing them, creating awareness of it inside the department. But also in daily life as a manager, it's also about making sure that our colleagues in the IT departments that we utilize the right technologies, that we evaluate which approach to take and which for which purpose, and so hereby utilizing the best possible of SAP that we can.
Mm.
So yeah, that's a part of it, growing the people in my department, but also creating awareness in the organization about what opportunities do we have.
And when you say opportunities, what would that be?
Well, SAP provides quite a lot of opportunities, so these will be the ones, but also things like the new technologies. There are ways of, with API management is one of the latest ones where, the SAP has one approach on that, and there's an alternative approach on that, and sharing what SAP can do. So we get a solid evaluation of which approach to take, when to use what.
Mm-hmm. And that, because that's something I'm struggling with, and I'm wondering how you're coping with it. Because now there are so many options. There are so many. The toolbox is big. It's become bigger. It was easier when it was old ECC days. There was one, and now are you evaluating that this new feature? Let's test it out, or how?
We're doing that too, but it is also a matter of that I see, yes, there are more options, but one of the beautiful things is that SAP strategy overall is now consolidating on BTP. That means all the island solutions that we're seeing, we're now potentially capable of consolidating them in BTP, so we have one platform for that particular purpose when we talk about SAP. There are alternatives out there, and there are alternatives to be evaluated. That could be, and it's not necessarily competing, but it's one platform for one purpose, basically.
Yeah.
But you're fully right that the options are more, complexity is higher, and I think if I'm looking at it, we need to decide wisely, because some of them will die, some new ones will come. It's a matter of betting on the right ones.
Yeah.
Yes.
Can you tell us a little bit about your team? What sort of development do you do in that team?
Well, we're responsible for the SAP development across business areas. So that means sales, supply chain, it means HR, and it's and finance, of course. And the interesting part is that now start with S4 also going to change instead of silos. So that's also a matter of with the FIORI journey that you're enabling business roles. Then my team is then developing that. The particular things where we want to enhance SAP or differentiate ourselves from where SAP is good, but want to differentiate ourselves in ways that can make Grundfos work better, and that can go across the areas.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And here we are choosing and selecting the ways of solving the development together with the functional consultants.
Yeah. So that is a change that has been brought in by the S4 upgrade?
And it's always been like that.
Okay.
But the difference with S4 is that we're still working with the SD, SSD, finance is finance, and so forth. But we also see with the FIORI journey that we are now combining these in chains instead. And that also implies ways of working more collaborative cross areas, because you need to have, if you have an approval process in purchase, financially that impacts, right? And therefore you cannot have a request app without an approver app, for instance. So it calls for more collaboration, but it hasn't in that sense changed the governance around it. But it does give us opportunities now to work a little bit more adaptive, I would call it, in the sense that we can now change the front end without necessarily changing back-end processes. Okay. And that is a freedom that we are utilizing it, but we are still to see the full benefit of it and utilize it for even more.
Yeah, you can adapt and on different layers independent of each other, but are you using this capability to also introduce solutions at a faster pace? So have you changed the way you release software, so to speak?
Yeah, we started out when during the S4 journey, we actually had the code remediation done externally. And that meant my team could focus on new technologies. And here we built up together with colleagues. we built up a FIORI factory concept. We thought, okay, we have these. At that point, I think it was 14,000 standard apps. Well, rolling them out, that needs to be smooth. And we built a FIORI factory concept, so we had a lean and effective way of, if that was requested, then we enable the business role, including the not only the functionality requested, but the business role as such, because that ties in together, and making that smooth. Yeah. And that means we could do it within, I think it's still within a day.
Okay. But just taking one step back, just to understand where you were coming from. So you did a brownfield, you converted your system into S4. Did then the users enter at that point in time into FIORI, or were it then business as usual, more or less, and afterwards you have introduced new things?
Yeah, we actually introduced FIORI to a smaller extent on R3. There were some options there. But I'm glad you asked, because we did a one-to-one migration. That was mitigating risks, because it's a rather big thing to do a greenfield approach. Yeah. And from there on, we started utilizing it. And it turns out that in some areas, SAP and the business is more mature on FIORI than others. So we have had a quite strong pace on supply chain, and other places are focusing quite a bit on also cloud solutions. So in that sense, they are not necessarily, they're moving on the cloud journey rather than the FIORI journey. But we're also focusing right now on that these things go in hand as we look ahead, because workflows and the capabilities to have one UI, mixing different kind of SaaS solutions from SAP with on-prem stuff, well, that goes hand in hand. But we are still working, so to speak, platform by platform, but we also see that these will eventually mix.
Yeah.
Okay. That's the journey we're on.
Yeah.
And
So
I mentioned the FIORI journey. Now we're on the BTP journey.
and listening to what other customers are doing, those who have a strong history, the operating model hasn't really changed. It makes great sense to convert, because you have a lot of investments in that solution, and then grow on that.
But I think also the S4 journey was a huge opportunity for cleaning up. I think we basically had 50% of our custom code not used. And
so it turned out like that.
But it comes by nature, because we have had a history of 15-20 years or so, right? And here, refactoring and cleaning up, that was a really, really good exercise.
Yeah.
The FIORI journey in that sense is also, it started there in principle, but it's also a rather big change organizational wise if you want to go for that, because we have 19,000 employees. You just don't go out here you go, here's a new feature. It would be nice, but and it is easier with FIORI because it's to a large extent self-explaining, but
it's still a change. It's a new way.
It's still a change.
Yeah.
And how did you manage that? So I mean, of course, you are not.
Well, it was easy. It was a one-to-one, so that was business as usual.
I know. But then, let's take the next step. Then you are introducing FIORI, and you are doing it as I understand it, process by process somehow. So
we actually had the thought that when we were live on S4, then we prepared for the journey of going for FIORI, and also per recommendation by SAP, we looked at one project for all areas, but that turns out to be not necessarily feasible, because we're moving on different maturity levels and different focus areas, and there are some interdependencies also on business requirements and cloud journeys and so forth. So we have decided to go for more smaller chunks. I can see the benefit of a big one, but having the S4 as a big project and then going out and say, well, we need another one of that size, that would not be beneficial for the business. They have requirements and needs they need to have as well.
One has to be business driven. It cannot be technical driven. No.
But I think we're on the right track, and we are moving in a reasonable pace. We'd always, I think that's natural for anyone. We'd always like to move faster, but I think it's in a good shape and a good balance.
What defines these smaller chunks? Is it business? Is it you? Or can you give an example, perhaps?
Well, it's like a snowball effect. If you start in supply chain area with one specific business role, there comes other ones as well, right? And it's really taking off there because they saw the benefit, have seen the benefit of it. So they are now asking for more, and then logically we launch more. Okay,
so you've managed to get some advocates in the business on adopting FIORI, and that's kind of the snowball is rolling now.
Yeah, in that area, and then we are looking at other areas as well. But there are maybe also in some cases on a different journey. It could be a SaaS solution. SuccessFactors has been there for years, so they're not moving in that area, right? Yeah. They're in a different pace. They're in a different platform. They're in a SaaS solution instead of on-prem.
Yeah. But still, you have options to adapt also in a SaaS solution, right? Yeah. So I mean, one thing is the user interface, but these RISEFs that comes along, change requests from the business, I mean, might actually involve the entire stack, I guess. So what are the governance rules in your department on let's say evaluating, can we do this standard by bringing in some sort of FIORI app or some functionality, or do we need to change? And if so, how do we change?
We actually try to avoid cherry picking wherever we can, so we don't launch standard apps one at a time because it goes by role. But we look into the role. That's a governance process around it. But there is a good question in the sense that if you have a business requirement, that you actually evaluate whether FIORI is one part of it, but it could also be that we just looking at plain CDSs and so forth, that we actually take the chance to refactor. That would be a case-by-case dependency because you don't break a user journey in the current GUI. Well, you can do that, but that's not of anybody's interest, I believe. So if it's massively depending on the GUI, then we still continue until we can take a larger chunk and say, okay, now that's FIORI candidate.
You've mentioned that a couple of times, the business rule, and that was introduced with the FIORI coming in, and I know SAP provides several business rules. Have you been able to use those, or have you combined your own business rules, being controller or supply chain, that you see the world differently, or how have you worked with that?
Can you elaborate on a business rules?
Roles.
Roles. Okay. Yeah.
It's my bad English. Sorry.
No. Okay. Yeah. No worries.
So were the business roles from SAP beneficials for you, or you constructed your own because you're?
We stick by the business role from SAP in the sense that that actually goes hand in hand by, for instance, an approver app and a request app. Needs to go hand in hand. Without an approval, then the request doesn't matter, right? I think that's the best part of it. The way I can explain it. It depends on cases as well.
Case by case, but in some cases, it makes good sense to use them.
Still, but I would like to dig a little bit into this case by case. I mean, of course, we cannot, as such, open up completely. But I mean, you could establish, I guess, some sort of decision tree on this type of, let's say, request would mandate this type of solution component. But how do you decide? What is there a board that approves, let's say, design principles from the developers, or what is the approach to let's say create the add-ons or changes in the right way?
Here we utilize our normal process of governance, but in the sense of deciding whether to go for FIORI or not, that's based on collaboration between the business consultant, functional consultants, and the developers together, the architects around that. Yeah. We are pushing it a bit forward now from a technical point of view and say, okay, now we at least want to do whatever we do, even if it's on so to speak, the old platform GUI. then set tables need to be CDS views instead and utilized like that. So we are preparing for, okay, eventually that if that development needs to exist in a FIORI world as well, then at least the foundation is in place. Yeah. But there's no strict governance around, okay, now we go for FIORI and that one. I think that comes with, based on the business, the business process and how heavily you want to change it. Then that would call for an assessment of FIORI. Yeah. But again, if you take the individual case, you're back to cherry picking, and we would like to avoid that.
Yeah. Okay. On that note, I mean, your team that you have, I mean, have you worked and enabled them or your partner that we would like to that you consider the SAP's way of extending? You mentioned set tables, CDS views. I mean, it's a skill set to know about the new SAP.
We have upskilled ourselves in, I'm not sure I'm fully on, but I'll try to answer anyway. We have upskilled our skills in my department in terms of set tables and needing to be CDS views and so forth. But we are, that's our own choice how we do that, right? But I also do see a need going forward that functional consultants might need to know a bit more about CDS views and what's in it. It will be a need in order to, for instance, APIs, exposing those, understanding what it is you expose. So it will be, there is a requirement for more technical, in-depth insight. Maybe it's not that different from what it might sound scary, but in the sense that if they know set tables, the CDS views could be treated equivalent. It's just called something different. Same purpose seen from that perspective. So knowing where to get the information from.
And knowing where because I guess, I mean, if we meet some old timers, they can drop table names in SAP, some years, exactly what they are called and how they are linked together. I mean, same kind of mindset needs to go into the CDS views. Where are those? Where production orders are and purchase orders?
And does SAP provide standard CDSs?
Yeah, yes.
So and that's a learning journey, but we are growing on it.
Yeah.
So coming back then to the BTP, now we've talked S4 quite a lot. So BTP is there, I guess now also as a tool to both integrate solutions, but also to augment solutions, and that is actually also on the full stack. And there you have the opportunity to use ABAP, so the BTP ABAP environment, but also Java and JavaScript methodologies there. Is that something that you are, I guess it is, but can you elaborate a little bit on how you explore that? And
well, the BTP platforms comes from 4 pillars. If we concentrate around the extension suite and the integration suite, then the integration suite we have taken in quite heavily, in the sense that is the place to be for integration going forward, seen from our perspective, and therefore we are moving heavily on that. Cloud extensions in the extension suite, we have just recently started on that, and that's still a journey for us to engage in that. Whereas we have had the FIORI journey, that's some years ago. That now we have quite a few apps up and running, most of them standard, and some also quite a few along the way on custom apps, but. On the cloud extensions, we have just recently started. So that's a brand new journey for us. I see a great perspective in this because that can potentially make it possible for us to go cross domains technically, meaning that it is easier for us to collaborate with a Java developer or even take in Java development ourselves, knowing that everyone has their religion about their platform, but at least we start talking the same language. We start working by the same models. Thing about, it's been there for years in Java, that's my background, right? That you separate the UI from the logic. And that's the journey that SAP has started with the S4. They implemented it. So that is something we can now utilize. And combine, for that matter, UIs cross platforms. Now, careful what you want. You also need to be careful about what you do, because mixing everything up also
can get spaghetti.
That gets a little complicated, I guess.
But
complex.
I mean, so that means you can cross the aisle, so to speak, and start to attract talent that may not know the SAP world, but knows how to code in let's say both open source but also Java languages.
Yeah, at least it opened up the door that we mentioned the student workers in the STEP program, SAP Technology Education Program that we just recently yesterday completed.
Yeah.
At your place. That opens up the door that students, or for that matter colleagues, will recognize the tools they're used to using. And that makes the onboarding a little easier. There's still a lot, because the SAP world is, SAP is big. And therefore there's a learning journey. But it opens, earlier you would not see that transfer as easy as that. But so I think we are opening the door for having new talents in easier.
Yeah. I mean, as you mentioned yourself, APIs into S4. I mean, the way we document these APIs, I think, has also improved a lot, and the way you utilize those. I mean, anyone can actually get access to an SAP system through the right API to get the things done properly. You don't have to go and code on table level to get things done.
No, there are standard ones, but that also combines it with the rest. Well, SAP towards SAP is really, really great, strong. Now we start combining it with the rest of the world as well, right? And here, APIs can be done in many different ways, but we're looking into how can we harmonize. So when we expose to partners, that we do it in a professional way. That's what we are looking at across the platforms. So it potentially can be seamless.
Yeah. And
well documented.
Okay, good. And are you using the BTP platform for this purpose?
On API management we started this year, so we are doing. I would still call it POCs. We're utilizing it in SAP context.
Yeah. Okay.
But we look in the broader context. It's still to be said. How do we do it cross platforms? So it's in a fairly early stage just yet. On API management, but we're moving on it.
Then now quite popular and discussed at some customer is this event-based backbones with APIs. Is that something that you're using?
No, not yet.
No, because.
But it is there, I know.
Yeah. and this interest of an event, an order has been created, and then we consume the order and. Those kind of things.
Yes. Yeah. And we're looking into it, but it's not. It's an really early stage just yet, and SAP Event Mesh is not utilized yet, just yet.
Yeah.
But
obviously we have other things for that right now, but that's some other things that we need to. A history behind it, because there are consolidation of the platforms that triggers events that needs to be in place before we do implement a new platform on top of that, and then the question would be, what platform is that?
But speaking of integration, I mean, you do use Integration Suite, I understand. Yeah. Is that your sort of main integration tool? Are you all done with a PI migration, or?
No, we're not done with the PI migration just yet. The end goal is, seen from our perspective, to move everything into BTP. We have depending on who you ask, but we have a rather big PI installation. So there's quite a few scenarios that I would reckon takes some years to migrate. And yes, we've started that. We are on BTP. We do that for anything new, but we have quite a bit on PI that we want to move into BTP. Yeah. Or the integration suite.
So
in the space of integration, where does your volume of integration lands? Is it towards legacy systems, or do you have a lot of suppliers and banks and customers that you're integrating? Where is mostly your integrations?
That's a difficult question to answer, because that depends on how you measure that. Yeah. If you measure in message sizes, then it's internal system to system. If we measure it in integrations scenarios, then it's more towards outside world as well.
Yeah. Okay. So you're an old timer. You have had integrations on SAP platform for quite some time.
At least the period of time I've been here.
Yeah. Okay. So then I would say it's a long time. Yeah.
So integration suite. So you are in progress migrating from PI to integration suite. What was the original reasoning for introducing integration suite? Because SAP said that this is the way to go if you have PO, or
the original one was the implementation of our cloud solutions, and here the recommendation was that there's preloaded content on integration suite, and we could also see that was intended to be the integration platform going forward. So it's a natural choice for us to say, okay, at least we now do the S4 to cloud to SAP cloud integrations by having the preloaded content, but also here investing in, okay, what does that mean for us? What are the capabilities that we can utilize? It's changed names over the years, but we started with HCI?
HANA Cloud Integration.
Yeah.
And then a couple of names later, we turned into Integration Suite. And by the way, a couple of migrations during last year from Neo to Cloud Foundry, Cloud Foundry to the Integration Suite. So it's moving, but and we are looking at it as a primary platform going forward. Question about time.
I mean, we often have discussions with clients that would like to transition from PI into something else, because, as you know, PI or PO has an end of life in 27, potentially 2030. They are then assessing, or trying to assess what will be the volume of work needed to migrate to integration suite. But I somehow sense that you didn't take that approach. You sort of decided this is the strategic tool, and then as we build new stuff, we build it on that. And then from time to time, you bring in stuff from PI, or is there a project in place to sort of do the migration?
There's a project, so to speak, in place in the sense that we actually had a migration to PO planned and executing on it. And this year we changed that perspective and say, okay, now we stop that project and go directly, because we think we can do it directly to BTP.
Yeah.
So that part of it is in shaping right now. It's already started in some sense that we have migrated we have started out some things, quite a few things on BTP, but we have quite a road ahead of us.
Okay.
But that started, yes.
Then just, I guess it's difficult to say, but I'll try in any case to ask whether your developers see productivity gains by moving from PI to integration suite, or is it same?
Difficult question in the sense that depends on, when you're moving from a mature platform to I wouldn't call it immature, because then it would be a wrong choice to pick it right now.
Yeah.
But we have some experience during the period of time. We have had the cloud solutions for, I don't know, 3-4 years or 5 years or something like that, but not heavily as we have had with PI. We are quite firm on PI, so calling it easier to move to the new platform. No, it's a new set of tools.
Yeah.
But we also see, and that goes for PI as well, we have seen a need for supplementing it with additional tooling, and here we also utilize for monitoring, for instance, we supplement it by Azure, and also take advantage of the Azure platform for when we expose our SAP system to the outside world. So we use elements of that. So I think it's also for me and my architects that we go SAP with SAP, but we also have the option and the opportunities to utilize different platforms, so we are more flexible and adaptive to whatever demand that comes going ahead.
One of the things that we pride ourselves on at SAP is the multitude of content packages that is available, not just for integration, but also for all other areas. Is that a true sort of accelerator in your development efforts? So to which extent would you say that you actually use this content?
Preloaded content, obviously, and that actually works quite smoothly. There's no success factor that was implemented just... No, that was actually on PI for starters, but anyways. but yeah, I do see that comes without effort, so to speak. The development as such, some things are better, some things are more efficient. And as we go along, then I expect also the tool will embrace capabilities that we see in PO right now, and also I would imagine comes on top of that additional functionalities and better ways of doing things.
Yeah.
And again, it relates to now we can start utilizing common tools with other colleagues from other platforms like Git systems and so forth, and that's not something we've been collaborating on before.
Yeah.
I see some synergies in that, both on BTP, but also for that matter on the extension suite.
Yeah. Speaking of that kind of tooling, GitHub and CI/CD, then also, I mean, how are you? We discussed it briefly, but are you better at continuously developing and integrating into your solutions, integration jobs, or is that eased with I don't know, pipelines, CI/CD pipelines, perhaps?
We are not there yet in that sense, so I can't answer that. To be fully honest,
but I mean, okay. But deploying, it's nowhere. It's not easier as it used to be deploying new solutions, or have you established a process that is, let's say, allowing you to at a faster pace introduce new functionality?
I think the pace as such is fast enough as it is, but in the sense that I do see that as we go along, that there will be synergies especially when you look at cross platforms. When you have a common deployment tool available, then that will be easier. Have we had the need yet? Not yet.
Okay.
But so within the SAP platform, no bigger change. But when you start looking across, then I do, based on the history of Java I've had, then there will be synergies in that, because we can combine that. In the same tooling.
On that note, controlling your changes when you're changing, are you using any of those SAP tools like Solution Manager or to control your change, or are you doing the change control?
We have change control we're utilizing Solution Manager. Yes, we're looking into Calm now. And yes, we do have governance around our changes in that sense. But Solution Manager is not covering the cloud as such.
No.
So, and that's actually been a challenge for us in terms of documenting FIORI, documenting these kind of things. That the BTP changes that we do, that is not in Solution Manager. That would potentially be in Calm, and that's just recently been made available as such for us. So
and speaking on that, we just the other week had a podcast with one cloud ALM Calm person, and he starts really now to feel that it's becoming mature. It has been a journey with the cloud ALM, but it is the choice for that SAP is pointing towards operation, monitoring one thing, implementing, there is a catch-up game.
And the interesting part here, we started out 24 years ago when we started this podcast, and now we are into the last 3-4 months or so when we visited, our basis department visited SAP in the name of Calm.
Yeah.
So that also tells you, I would imagine, where we are in that journey. That yes, we have seen the toolbox, we have opened the toolbox in Grundfos, but we have not
started to.
That's within weeks, then months, that we have started to connect the wires and so forth. So that's where we are.
Yeah.
Speaking of new tools, also part of the discussion yesterday when the students visited the Experience Center in Copenhagen was no-code tools. So for development, we had a little bit of a discussion there. I remember the students said that such tools could actually be efficient even for pro developers. What's your take on that? Is that something you are embracing here, or?
Yes and no, in the sense that there are, I see the beauty of low code, no code. We're not doing assembler anymore. It's level up,
we're
right?
stepping up, yeah.
And low code, that's maybe low code, no code. That's maybe the next step, and something we can get. That can enable functional consultant business users to actually do what is equivalent to development. The point is back to that doesn't change the facts around that you need to have competence in order to do that. What is it you're building? How critical is it? Do you have your governance process around it in place? And that's not necessarily technical things. That's capabilities that you need as an organization to have in place. So let's imagine you do as a low code, no code, and that for starters is nice for you. You show it to colleagues. It starts maturing and starts spreading. That's super great, right? But what about support in service desk? How do you make sure that your functional consultants who is in Grundfos is taking part in the business development and creating awareness of what is possible? Then there is a risk that you basically have lack of support because you were not aware of that particular things. There can be security issues. So I think here we also in IS we need to embrace it. We need to learn. We need to know what it is, so we can also recommend and consult our business on when you utilize this. Be aware of this and this and this. If you implement critical things, that goes for anything. Then you need your coverage in place, and having one person being able to support it is not sufficient if it's business critical. There need to be more. And then it starts showcasing why we have a support service desk, why we have operations, why we have all these things in place that we do for normal things. That is when you have a small solution that grows big, right? Then these things needs to be in place. And having a collaboration with business and awareness of these matters, then I think, yes, it's easier to give, so to speak, I wouldn't call it freedom, but because I think that's the counter word of not allowed. But actually, creating the synergies that we're in it together, and we have each our competences as organizations. So let's help business getting it done right.
Empower them, but also when it starts being, that's I think everyone working in IT can relate to this, when it starts being things that needs to be maintained, things that need to be tested, then the interest suddenly drops. Right? Marketing, and that's where, that's our job also to take responsibility for that it works afterwards. So if you have something business critical, you're done yourself, you're proud of it and so forth, and you start utilizing in an organization, be aware, then we need as an organization to be aware that, okay, this is now becoming critical. So if that person leaves, we need to make sure that it's anchored in the right places. And we should embrace it, we should do it, and also learn from it. What can we do? What can't we do? No, I mean, no code, I'm sure, is there to stay, but do it in a way that assures that proper governance is in place.
And a small thing for you in SAP, then it would be nice that low code, no code actually comes with a development extension. So whenever these features are not possible to meet with the low code, no code, that we can enhance it with development. That's currently not, as far as I know, possible. So it's either, if you can't meet the business requirement as is, you need to develop from scratch, and that's actually a little bit of a pain, right? It's at least hard to explain that nice work, but since you actually need this field or this functionality, we need to build the entire application from scratch.
Okay, is that really the case? Well, but
in some cases, it goes fast, so it can also be that it's changed since last time we checked, but that's at least one of the things that.
Okay, that's one key recommendation.
That would be nice.
We bring it on. We bring it with us.
Absolutely. I mean, speaking of I mean, I kind of like pro code more, but I as part
because
of
you're so old.
True. I'm not that old. No. But I saw on Sapphire. Well, no, actually, I didn't see it. I wasn't there, and I didn't see the replays, but I read about it. And apparently generative AI and AI as such was a big topic, as I'm sure it is all over the place. And at Sapphire, we presented a series of solutions that are built into S4 and other tools that actually leverages AI actively. But I also saw a prototype there that would allow developers to use generative AI in a smart manner, in the sense that you could have the, let's say, majority of the code generated by means of a description of what the app should do, and then you get the majority of the code for a FIORI app presented. And I'm kind of thinking, if you have that and it really works, then you skip the no-code tooling and go directly to just talking to the development tool.
Yeah, we actually, well, it's interesting now we mentioned we were with you yesterday, and actually one of the students has graduated with doing a master's with Grundfos as a case for AI used in development.
Super.
And it raises quite some questions as well, in the sense that there are some things to take into mind. One of the things I think, it's still, for all of us, I believe it's absolutely there. It's been there actually for years, many years, but now starting being something everyone understands as well, or at least know. And in the development context, yes, it makes sense. Also being careful that it's still in a shape where if you expose what you want to develop, you're also exposing what you want to do business-wise. And there can be confidentialities in that. There can be things you need to take into considerations. Same thing goes for utilizing AI in a business context, but both cases, it needs to be something that's in control. And that's also where I expect and rely on that SAP will incorporate that. So it can be done in a way where my developer, my team, or my colleagues can utilize these functionalities, but not published.
No. In your context.
You have done that. We've done AI for years, embedded into SAP. It's nothing. There's nothing new in predictive analytics and so forth in that sense, because that's been there for years. I would also expect this one to be incorporated. So for instance, as a part of for my team, as a part of the development tool, that you can, in principle, ask the question, can you move a file from A to B utilizing SFTP? Please provide me a program that can do that. And that we have seen that works. You need to be skilled enough to read what it is, and also things that might not be fully there. But eventually, yes, it will be more effective, and especially in cases where you're new to an area, then you can get hints or things like it can support you. But similar as if you search on Google, we can all relate to that. If I do a search on Google, it might not be the first one that answers my question. No. The first link. It can take a couple of iterations. And the same thing goes here. You need to know what you're looking for and understand it.
And it's a new skill set. I mean, we have had Google for 20 years. We have learned how to use it when it makes good sense. And I guess this is where we are.
So this prompt engineering is the new thing. This is what you need to be.
The black prompt is coming back.
Yeah, but I think it actually, there are some truth in it that maintaining the core capability of knowing what you're talking about, knowing what your technologies is about, that remains even more important. But it makes it easier, and it makes it maybe more easy for new colleagues or newcomers to the area to join in, because can ask.
And I guess we have all tested out ChatGPT and got some silly answers, but we have also done it and got excellent answers.
Yes.
And that's why, those who decide that, you need to have a skill to judge that.
Yes, the downside, at least that when I tried it the first, I said, well, utilizing things from 2021 and backwards, and that's actually too old. That become evident that when we talk about, especially for instance, CPI to integration suite, not there.
No.
Exactly. I mean, you need to use the large language models, but on more recent data, of course. So embedded in the technology, so that where the data is, the data that matters actually is. That I guess is the key.
But I do see a potential in having it embedded in development tools, making things easier.
Okay, it's It's getting close to the end, I guess. We've been talking for a while on development and also methodologies there. As I went into this building, I realized that I've been here before. Some 7-8 years ago, I was here at a meeting with Grundfos discussing some IoT initiatives that you were embarking on. I'm sure you have progressed a long way down that line. And that also reminds me of yesterday when we talked about business transformation with the students there. So where are you at Grundfos in terms of transitioning from a product-oriented business to a service-oriented business, if that's your strategy actually? And in what way does that affect SAP and S4HANA?
It still is the strategy, but I've also been for years. It is a market that's evolving as well, but it's also hard to get moving from being a product oriented, not for Grundfos as such, but also for the market to adapt. So similar. I would actually compare it to when we moved from on-prem to cloud credits, consumption based. It is tough to get into that new business model. Actually, also in some cases maybe accepting that's how it is, and maybe it's out of some of the things you will consider in the very beginning out of control, in the sense that but then I can use unlimited cloud credits and get the bill for it, and that's true. And that's a part of the journey, and that's a maturity journey. We need to embrace it as well. Yeah. We need to make the wise choices. So back to the product part of it, that's been an ongoing thing for Grundfos for years. I don't see that as a change as such. That's something that's been there and something that's supported. But I do see it in the sense of Grundfos and SAP and Microsoft in terms of now we're buying a service rather than having a platform in the basement in many cases. But I will also see that it's a combination, a hybrid of that.
Okay. So you already alluded to one point that we could do better at SAP, namely ensuring that you can extend the tools so that you don't have to code from the scratch.
Yeah, but I will also say when we move on the BTP platform and the engagement and the way we have been collaborating with SAP on this has actually been quite positive in the sense when we moved into BTP and the CPA agreement and these kind of things, then we have a close collaboration, because that's also fair to say it's a maturity journey for yourself as well. So these things about financial operations, FinOps we call it, and the way we do financial controlling on the CPA agreement, that's easier in Microsoft environment, but it's slightly different. But also one of the things I have a close collaboration with SAP on, we're now building an app that can alert us on that, which has been in collaboration with your guys as well, because it's a common interest for customers, I believe, and we're working on that still. We need to be in control of our cloud credits. Use them wisely.
Yeah. No, but I mean, we do the same, of course. I mean, all of us have the opportunity to create an Azure account, but then once we do that, we also need to sort of
control the cost.
Yeah, exactly, and we need to sort of look at the emails we constantly get. Are you sure that you are using this and this and this, and so yeah.
So one of the concerns when you move into that is that what would it cost running? The initial cost actually is fairly low in many cases, and sometimes expensive, but fairly low in general. But what will it cost over time? That can be a factor that actually can create resilience right now that we need to embrace, and also for me to talk to my colleagues here. Yeah, this one is actually easy, low cost and so forth. This one costs you no more. And the point is basically, if that's the challenge now, earlier that was the challenge that we needed to buy hardware. Now we get, within a day from signing the contract, we more or less get the service. And in some cases where we have BTP, when we have the BTP platform, we can just enable them, and then we start paying. So that's a new thing that we need to get used to. It does take a couple of months to get hardware and licenses negotiated in place. That's already done. So now the challenge is more like, how do we then make sure that now this can be done, but have we actually evaluated the cost, and is the business case valid? What will be the running cost of this? So that's what we are looking at right now, BTP governance.
Yeah.
And then fueling, that's the main topics for us. The BTP governance, utilizing that cloud journey, and then fueling talents.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I'm just thinking, I have the same conversation at home at the kitchen table sometimes with all the apps that the kids have been using. I am in control of the finance department. They are utilizing, and so I'm asking, what do you have? What are you? And I can centrally control that. What abonnement are they having? And seeing the cost. Are you using this? Is it worth spending this 15 kronor per month on this one?
Yeah.
But it's a shift. One needs to. They can argue that it's really good. I really need this. Okay, then.
And I think when we look at these going forward, now we have a lot of options, which also create complexity. That we will also see that will consolidate, but also move as we go along, as it is always done. But now, we're always saying it goes faster, but I think it actually does now. But we also need to cope with it as people, business-wise process and changing processes, coping with new ways of working, that we will actually maybe see that limiting factor will be ourselves rather than now we can just launch it, right? But do we also want that?
Yeah, true. Yes.
Launching new functionalities we have seen all over the place. Are we actually there that we can cope with the fact that, okay, now there's a new one, and then there's a new one. Do we then change our business processes, or what do we do?
Exactly, yeah.
So there might come a reaction on that one.
That could be. Let's have some stability and do things like we used to, yeah. What's installed for the future then? I mean, do you have any exciting new projects coming up at Grundfos?
Yeah, we're looking into quite a few of the new SAP SaaS platforms as well.
Sorry, SAP
SaaS cloud solutions.
Yeah, SaaS solutions. Yep.
And the potential in these. I know we are right now talking to you about that as well. We have quite a few of them already, SuccessFactor, IBP, Concur, and so forth. But we're looking right now, when you ask about projects, into new commercial core. What would that be? Would that be which platforms will be involved in that? Which services and where to put them?
Yeah.
Supply chain, same thing. I would also imagine finance coming up. And there's a lot of other things that we're launching right now. So I'm looking into a fairly busy second half year.
Okay, on that note, then thanks a lot, Jakob, for sharing your insights from Grundfos. This was really interesting.
Really interesting.
It's been a pleasure, and I hope it can be used.
I'm sure it can. Thanks a lot for your time.
Thank you too.
This was another episode of Data Lab Dialogues. We'll be back shortly.